She laughed at me, right there in the middle of my own farm. Called me a simple farm boy, with dirt on my boots and no future in my eyes. What she did not know was that the land beneath her designer heels belonged to me. Every acre, every contract, every secret. And by the end of that day, the girl who mocked me would stand speechless, holding soil in her trembling hands, realizing she had just underestimated a millionaire genius. Stay with me, because this is not just a story about money. It is a story about pride, humility, and the kind of wealth you never see coming. She laughed at me, right there in the middle of my own farm. The first time she saw me, I was standing beside a tractor, boots covered in red soil, sun pressing heat into my shoulders. She laughed, not cruel at first, just amused. "A simple farm boy," she said, brushing dust from her silk dress, as if the wind itself offended her. Her perfume carried notes of jasmine. Mine carried earth, rain, and long afternoons in the fields. I felt the sting crawl up my neck. The workers heard it. The wind heard it. I heard it most of all. Yet I smiled. Because soil teaches patience. Because seeds grow in silence. She had arrived from the city to inspect the land her father planned to purchase. Her heels sank into the ground. She looked at the barn, as if it were a forgotten relic. "You must have never finished school," she added lightly. The words landed heavier than stones. I remembered nights under a dim lantern, studying agricultural engineering, learning market patterns, writing business codes while roosters slept. My hands were rough. My mind was sharper than she imagined. Days later, she returned, this time to negotiate. Inside the farmhouse, the air smelled of cedar and fresh bread. Sunlight poured across the wooden table. Her father froze when he saw me seated at the head. Documents lay before me. Company seals stamped in gold. Balance sheets thicker than the walls of pride she carried. I watched her expression shift. Confusion, discomfort, shock blooming like sudden thunder. "You own this land?" she whispered. I nodded gently. Not only this land. The distribution network. The export firm. The patents on drought-resistant grain. Silence filled the room, heavy and electric. Her eyes softened. In that moment, I saw regret. Not for my wealth, for her assumption. I poured her tea with steady hands. "Success grows quietly," I said, "like roots beneath the surface." Her fingers trembled around the cup. "With no one believing in you?" Her question lingered in the warm air. I looked past her, through the open window, toward the endless stretch of wheat bending in the sun. "I had someone," I said quietly. "My mother. A woman with cracked hands, and a heart whiter than these fields. She woke before dawn, lit the stove, and whispered faith into my tired bones. When neighbors laughed at my books, she placed another candle beside me. When storms flooded the crops, she stood ankle-deep in mud, lifting seedlings with trembling fingers, telling me that roots grow stronger after struggle. I built this for her. Every contract signed, every risk taken, every sleepless night studying global markets. While tractors hummed outside, the city saw dirt. She saw destiny. Across the table, her eyes glistened. The confidence she wore like jewelry began to soften. "I thought success looked different," she admitted. A faint smile touched my lips. "Success looks like sacrifice," I replied. "It smells like soil and sweat." A breeze swept through the room, lifting the curtains gently. She stood and walked toward the window. Her heels rested quietly now, no longer fighting the ground. "I was wrong," she said. voice steady yet fragile. I saw your clothes. I missed your character. The confession felt heavier than her earlier laughter. Pain and tenderness intertwined in my chest. I have been underestimated before, I answered. It teaches endurance. She turned to face me fully. In her eyes, there was no mockery now, only respect and something deeper, understanding. The golden light brushed her face, softening every sharp edge pride once carved. My father needs partners like you, she said carefully. Not buyers. The word partner echoed between us, not as business, as possibility. Outside, workers moved through the fields, their laughter carried by the wind. I thought of every early morning, every blister, every quiet prayer beneath the stars. Not about profit, she added, voice trembling with sincerity, but about strength. Her words settled into me, like rain into thirsty soil. For the first time, her eyes held humility instead of assumption. I studied her face closely. The silk confidence was gone. In its place stood a woman, searching for something real. Strength begins with listening, I said, and with respect. She nodded slowly. Outside, a tractor rolled across the horizon, its steady rhythm echoing years of discipline. I remembered the nights when exhaustion pressed against my spine, when numbers blurred on my screen, when investors from the city dismissed my proposals because my address carried dust instead of glass towers. Each rejection had carved patience into my spirit. Each sunrise had renewed my resolve. She walked toward the doorway, then paused beside an old wooden photograph on the wall. My mother's smile radiated from the frame. She looks proud, she whispered. She believed before anyone else did, I answered. A long silence followed, not uncomfortable, reflective. Her fingers traced the edge of the frame gently, as if touching sacrifice itself. I was raised to measure worth by appearance, she confessed. Today I learned how shallow that measure feels. The honesty in her voice carried weight. The room felt warmer, closer. She removed her heels and stepped barefoot onto the cool wooden floor. The gesture startled me. The polished city daughter, standing grounded on farm soil. I want to understand the work, she said softly. The early mornings, the risks, the faith. I stepped beside her. The scent of wheat drifted inside again, sweet and alive. Then walk with me at dawn, I replied. Her eyes lifted, bright with something new. Hope. Outside, the sky began to soften into evening gold. Workers waved in the distance. Opportunity shimmered in the fading light. She turned toward me once more, closer than before, and asked quietly, And you? Her question brushed against something tender inside me. I felt the quiet weight of years, spent proving myself, without applause. You failed to see the mornings, I said softly. The mornings when frost bit into my skin, and I walked the fields alone. The mornings when the sky was pale silver, and hope felt fragile as thin glass. She listened, without interruption. You failed to see the fear, I continued. The risk of losing everything. The loan signed with trembling hands. The nights I stared at the ceiling, wondering if faith alone could carry a harvest. Her breath grew slower. The golden light outside deepened, wrapping the room in warmth. I saw dirt, she admitted. I missed devotion. The honesty in her voice felt like balm on an old bruise. I stepped onto the porch. She followed barefoot. The wood cooled beneath her feet. The field stretched wide before us, waves of amber moving in patient rhythm. This land listens, I told her. It rewards sincerity. It exposes arrogance. A soft wind lifted her hair. No silk now. No distance. Only a woman standing beside a man. she once reduced to a joke. I felt small today, she whispered, when I realized who you truly are. I shook my head gently. Wealth never defines a person, I said. Character does. Her eyes met mine, steady and searching. I want to build something honest, she said, not just profitable. The sincerity in her tone cut deeper than her earlier mockery. I sensed a shift, greater than business. Two worlds standing at the edge of understanding. The sky burned orange and rose. A moment suspended between pride and humility. She moved closer, voice almost carried away by the wind. Teach me how to see beyond appearances. I looked at the fields, then back at her, and answered slowly. First, you must learn to feel the soil in your hands and understand what it takes to make something grow. She knelt without hesitation. Her delicate fingers pressed into the dark earth. A quiet gasp escaped her lips. It is warm, she murmured. Because it holds life, I replied. She lifted a handful of soil, letting it slip slowly through her fingers. The last light of evening caught the dust in the air, turning it into gold. This is where it begins, I said. Not in boardrooms, not in headlines. Here. She looked up at me, eyes softer than before. I mocked what I never tried to understand. Her voice carried regret, but also growth. I crouched beside her. The world rewards speed, I said gently. This land rewards patience. In the distance, workers gathered their tools, their laughter drifting toward us like a blessing. She watched them with new awareness. They trust you, she observed. I trust them, I answered. A partnership built on respect, not fear. The wind strengthened slightly, cool against our skin. She rose slowly, dust clinging to her palms. For a moment she studied her hands, once polished and untouched, now marked with earth. A small smile appeared. I feel different, she confessed. Growth feels different, I replied. The sky deepened into violet. Lights flickered on inside the farmhouse. She stepped closer. No hesitation left between us. Tomorrow at dawn, she said softly, I will walk these fields with you. There was no pride in her tone now, only resolve. I saw courage forming where judgment once lived. The journey ahead shimmered with possibility. Two lives intersecting not through wealth, but through understanding. And as the first stars appeared above the quiet farm, she reached for my hand and whispered, Show me how to build something that truly matters. Her fingers trembled slightly in mine, not from weakness, from awakening. I felt the softness of her palm, still carrying traces of soil. Then begin with service, I said quietly. The night air wrapped around us, cool and honest. Service to what? She asked. To people, I answered. To the ones who wake before sunrise. To the ones whose names never appear in magazines. To the ones who carry silent burdens. She listened as if every word weighed something inside her. A truck engine hummed in the distance. A dog barked near the barn. Simple sounds. Sacred sounds. My father speaks about expansion, she said slowly. Bigger markets. Higher margins. Expansion without compassion empties the soul, I replied. She inhaled deeply, as if breathing in more than air. Teach me how you built loyalty, she said. I smiled faintly. By standing in the rain with him. By sharing profit when harvest thrives. By absorbing loss when storms destroy. Her grip tightened slightly. I have lived surrounded by glass walls, she admitted. Today feels like stepping into something real. A quiet warmth moved through me. Pain from her earlier laughter faded, replaced by something gentler. Understanding blooming where judgment once stood. Inside the farmhouse, A single lamp glowed near my mother's photograph. She noticed it again. "I wish I could thank her," she whispered. "You can," I said softly, "by becoming someone she would respect." The stars brightened overhead. She stepped closer, close enough to hear the steadiness in my breathing. "I want to invest in the workers' families," she said suddenly. "Education, healthcare, homes." Her voice carried urgency now, purpose forming in real time. I studied her face. No performance, no pride, only sincerity. "That is how true wealth multiplies," I said. She nodded, eyes shining with quiet determination. The farm rested around us, alive and patient, a beginning unfolding beneath the night sky. Her voice carried both courage and vulnerability. I felt the gravity of the moment settle gently between us. "This chapter demands honesty," I said. She nodded. "No masks," she replied. The wind brushed across the fields, bending the wheat in slow, rhythmic waves. For years, I had walked this land alone, carrying ambition in one hand and responsibility in the other. Now, beside me, stood someone willing to learn its language. "We begin before sunrise," I told her, "when the world is quiet and intentions feel clear." She smiled softly. "I will be here," she said. Inside the farmhouse, the clock ticked steadily, marking time that felt newly meaningful. We stepped back onto the porch. The night smelled of soil and distant rain. She leaned against the railing, gazing at the horizon where darkness met promise. "I used to think power meant control," she admitted. "Now I see it means responsibility." Her words felt steady, earned. I saw transformation taking root. Not dramatic, not sudden, but sincere. The field shimmered under starlight, as if listening to our quiet resolve. Tomorrow would bring early light, cold air, honest work, and perhaps a partnership built not from pride, but from shared purpose. She turned toward me once more, eyes clear, and said softly, "Let this be the beginning of something worthy." The words settled into the night like a vow. I studied her face in the starlight. Gone was the careless amusement. In its place stood intention. "A worthy beginning requires sacrifice," I said gently. She straightened slightly. "I am ready to give more than opinions," she replied. The honesty in her tone carried weight. A lantern flickered near the barn, casting long golden shadows across the ground. I imagined the dawn ahead, cold air brushing against our skin, boots pressing into damp soil, hands learning the language of labor. "You will wake before comfort," I told her. "You will feel blisters before results." She inhaled slowly. "Then I will earn the right to stand beside you." A quiet warmth rose in my chest. For years, I had fought against judgment. Now I witnessed humility unfolding. The farm felt different tonight, alive with quiet possibility. We stepped down from the porch together. Gravel shifted beneath our feet. She glanced at her hands again, still faintly marked with earth. "I want to keep this," she said softly. "The soil, the reminder." A distant owl called across the fields. The sound echoed like a blessing over fresh beginnings. Inside, the lamp near my mother's photograph glowed steadily. I felt her presence in the stillness. Pride without noise, guidance without words. She moved closer once more, her voice steady. "Tomorrow, teach me how to plant." I looked toward the dark horizon, where dawn quietly prepared itself. And with a calm breath, I answered, "Tomorrow, you will plant more than seeds." The next morning arrived wrapped in silver light. She stood beside me before the sun fully rose. No silk, no heels, only denim, boots, and quiet determination. The air felt crisp against our skin, I handed her a small sack of seeds. She held them carefully, as if they were something sacred. "These look so small," she whispered. "So do beginnings," I replied. We walked the rows slowly. She knelt, pressed her fingers into the soil, and placed the first seed into the earth. There was no audience, no applause, only the sound of breath and the rhythm of effort. By midday, her hands carried blisters. Sweat traced softly along her temples, yet her eyes shone brighter than before. "This feels different from signing contracts," she said. "It is," I answered. "Here you see what you build." Weeks passed. She returned each dawn. She listened to the workers. She learned their names. She heard their stories. Slowly, respect replaced reputation. The day the first green shoots broke through the soil, she stood beside me in silence. Tears gathered in her eyes. "I understand now," she said softly. "True wealth grows beneath the surface." I nodded. "Character, patience, kindness. These are the roots." She once mocked what she did not understand. Now she nurtured what she once overlooked. The farm expanded, not only in profit, but in purpose. Education programs began. Homes were repaired. Families felt secure. And every time she walked those fields, she carried humility in her heart. People often judge by clothing, by accents, by dirt on hands. Yet the strongest minds and the purest intentions often were the simplest disguises. The lesson lived quietly in every harvest. Never measure a soul by its surface. Respect effort. Honor unseen struggles. Look beyond appearance. Because sometimes the one standing in the soil holds the richest heart of all.